Hi, welcome back to Guitar Discoveries. Today I'm going to share a little about my musical journey, but stick around because what I really want to know is your story. I'm going to ask some questions and I really hope you'll go back in time in your own life to share your answers and tell us about your musical origin story. My musical journey started here, before I can even remember. I was an 18-month-old DJ spinning little golden records. So I loved music, and I was already fascinated by the technology that could record and play it back. So I remember songs and music from years before I have any conscious memories of events. So here's question number one for you. What's your first musical memory? Just go to the comments and answer there. I consider myself lucky because my family loved music too. My dad played piano and ukulele by ear, and he didn't play often at all, but when he did, he could bring down the house. So he only knew a few songs, but he could just tear them up like a pro. He did his own jazz arrangement of Three Blind Mice, and it totally knocked people out. Anyway, he loved all styles of music. And I'm so glad that I got exposed to all of that. He inherited a big stack of old 78s and a wind-up gramophone from his parents. And as a kid, I played those 78s over and over. I mean, that old gramophone sound was just magical to me. It was like the music was being beamed in from another time and place. My dad was interesting though, because he also loved new technology. So we were one of the first families on my block to get a hi-fi stereo for the living room. It was a Gerard turntable, an amplifier, and a Magnavox stereo reel-to-reel. We even had a custom installed jack for headphones. So, I mean, damn, looking back, we were cool. And my parents' record collection was super eclectic. So there was like jazz, Dave Brubeck and Jonah Jones. There were crooners, Julie London, Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra. Lush, loungy background music like Morton Gould and Nelson Riddle, classical like George Sell and the Cleveland Orchestra and Joseph Cripps and the Concertgebouw. There was folk like the Kingston Trio and the Phoenix Singers. There was even rock like Trini Lopez and Johnny Rivers and on and on. Now, thanks to my older brothers, Dave, who was 8 years older, and Rick, 7 years older, we also had tons of Pop 45s when I was really young. So before I could read, about 3 years old, I knew every disc by artist and song title. So I could pick them out just by the design of the label. So this was like a parlor trick between my brothers and their friends. I was their gopher. They'd send me off and say, get Good Lovin' or get Kicks by Paul Revere or get Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter. And I would show up with the right 45 every time. I mean, I'm proud of that, right? 3 years old. Once Dave and Rick could afford LPs, which was the mid-60s, we started having all the cool new albums from the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, the Doors, all the usual list of the now classics. It was like a constant stream of new musical discoveries, and I was a super devoted listener. I just couldn't wait for the next album to come out. But it was the song Strawberry Fields, from John Lennon and the Beatles, of course, that was really my turning point. That was when I decided I had to try singing and playing too. Now, I did a whole song blow up about Strawberry Fields and why it's so special and magical to me. You can check it out right here. Okay, so question number 2 for you. What inspired you to start making music? So my first attempt to play was when my dad taught me 3 chords on the uke. And he taught me this very highly un-PC hit song from the 40s called She's Too Fat for Me. It was by Arthur Godfrey. I don't want her, you can have her, she's too fat for me. She's too fat for me. She's too fat for me. I don't want her, you can have her, she's too fat for me. She's too fat, much too fat for me. I mean, really, can you believe that was a hit? Anyway, the uke was easy to play, and it was small. It fit my little 6-year-old hands. But I was eyeing my brothers all the time because they were both playing full-size guitars. And at some point, I figured out that these chord shapes on the uke also worked on the top 4 strings of the guitar. So I basically said, I'm going to switch. And then I learned to add the bass notes for the 5th and 6th strings. That simple. So by the time I was 8, I was a guitarist, and by 10, I was starting to write original songs. Okay, I want to take one moment and go back and honor another generation, my grandparents in New York City. So they were also steeped in music. My grandmother, Therese, they called her Reese, grew up in Paris, and she learned piano with an old school teacher who used to rap her knuckles when she'd make mistakes. To her credit, she stayed with it long enough to really become a concert level pianist. I mean, she was playing Chopin and Debussy and Liszt. She played one recital at Carnegie Hall, and then because she associated all this pain with the piano, she swore it off for good. I mean, really sad. I never heard her play. But even though she stopped playing, she still loved listening to music. And she and my grandfather, Morris Cassard, were close friends with Cole Porter and Douglas Moore. They'd been my granddad's classmates at Yale. So legend has it, it's probably pretty accurate, that the Steinway Baby Grand piano that I inherited from my grandparents is actually the piano that Cole Porter used to write Begin the Begin and I've Got You Under My Skin. Now, my grandparents told me that both of those songs began as improvisations at their Manhattan cocktail parties. I mean, I love this kind of history because it's not really about me, right, as much as it is about the people and the environment and sort of the history that spawned my love of music, and a lifelong journey that I certainly hope still has a very long way to go. Okay, enough about me and my story. If you haven't answered my questions yet, please go to the comments and tell us 2 things. Number 1, what's your first musical memory? And number 2, what inspired you to start making music, not just listening? Please add your origin story, and then I hope you'll pass the video on to any other musicians you know so they can share their story too. I appreciate you watching and kind of joining in the conversation, because I'm hoping to create a community here and a dialogue where we can all share our love and experiences with music. I mean, the whole channel is really about musical discoveries and inspiration and shortcuts and gear and tips and guitars. I mean, really anything I can come up with to help you play guitar, sing, and record your music, really as a gift to everyone. I mean, this is your legacy, right? Your music is your legacy. All right, please check out my other videos like this one and subscribe if you haven't already. I also post all my videos on guitardiscoveries.com. So check that out. You'll learn some new stuff, maybe reignite your passions, and see you next time.